Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dylan Hildreth of the newly branded Hildreth Investigates. Yeah, I kept the colors because I like the color scheme. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. As many may have seen in my last video, I kind of in real time had an epiphany of why Bethany added at the very end of her interview that Kaylee was actually thinking about not going to Texas. And I kind of had an epiphany about it. And then when we get done with that whole spiel, Nancy Grace is back with Elise. She does a YouTube channel. I don't remember what it's called, but we can't go a video without smacking some moron around, can we? Of course not. You want somebody that's kind-hearted and willing to talk things out? Honey, I ain't the one. You're gonna come out here and make stupid claims and make yourself look like an idiot, then I'm gonna call you out. Especially if you have a platform like Elise and Nancy Disgrace has. So, without further ado, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit the notification bell so you can see who I get to smack around next. All right. Without further ado, let's get into this. So, we got to go back to the Bethany Funke interview, really understand context of which she said this. Now, I don't know exactly where this left off.
7 years.
And that's in Kaylee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're talking about past relationships, trying to gather a suspect pool, which is absolutely the way you're supposed to do it. And then this is, well, that was one of the few things that they did right here, but, you know, it is what it is, I guess. Anyway.
Or something like that.
And they did it for 7 years?
Something like that. Since high school. Our families are really close too.
Okay. And they shared Murphy?
Mm-hmm, I think.
Okay. How long did they break up?
Maybe like 3 months or something. But they're still on really good terms.
Allegedly. I don't know about you, but if the love of my life breaks up with me, I'm not going to be doing okay. Now, I'm not going to go on a quadruple murder streak, but in the documents, Jack said in his interview he had to go to counseling to get over Kaylee. And I'm guessing it didn't work. But anyway, let's...
Do you know why they broke up?
She was going to move to Texas.
Which, that's a pretty dumb reason in among itself, because, I mean, in this day and age, even in 2022, long-distance relationships are just a thing. So, and it's much, much easier than in the past to have and maintain long-distance relationships. And quite frankly, it's not even stupid long either. I mean, yeah, it's probably going to be more than a weekend, but still, it's not like something that's not doable, especially for a 7-year-long relationship. So Bethany either doesn't know the exact reason, or she's assuming the reason.
Where's Kaylee from?
Portland.
Okay. Where is from?
Portland.
Okay. Okay. You said that they're still on good terms, they still talk to
Very
each
good
other.
terms, yeah.
Okay.
Very
Haley been
good
seeing
terms.
anyone else lately?
Not really that I know of.
Okay. Do you know when she was going to move to Texas?
After the semester. But then apparently she wasn't going to anymore. I don't know.
There it is. There it is. There is the cover. That is Bethany Funke covering for Jack DeCoeur. And I already know some people. Oh, Jack didn't do it. His phone was at home. Yes, because, you always get on that. You always want to bring your phone when you're about to commit a murder. Come on now. Come on. It's the most ridiculous reasoning I've ever seen in my life. So, here, like, with Bethany adding that in on the back end, it is clear and obvious that she is covering for Jack. In doing that, she just implicated Jack in the murders. She has implicated herself as a conspirator at minimum. That is the only logical explanation. Nobody else mentions Haley potentially changing her mind. And the reasoning for her changing her mind is astounding. And this really just blows it away.
Do you know what changed your mind?
I think she wanted to stay here with all of us.
She was already gone, dude. She was living with her aunt. So, what do you mean she wants to stay with us? She just wants to stay with us. She wasn't even supposed to be there that weekend. What do you mean? She hadn't been there. She was already virtually moved out, according to many people. So, that's a blatant lie, which, again, it points back to she's covering for Jack DeCoeur. That is the only logical explanation. If you have another reason for that, please put it in the comments. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. So, that is that. Now, if you're very sensitive and get your feelings hurt for somebody else, this is your time to go away. Because we going after people. We are going after people with massive platforms who should know better. And that's one of the main parts of this channel. There are way too many large creators on here that are parroting the corrupt Moscow PD, the corrupt ISP, and just the bullshit narrative that they continue to push. And if it was something to do with sports or something to do with politics, I would be a little bit more forgiving. But when it comes to true crime, your whole shtick is seeing through the bull and calling out BS when you see it in the world of true crime. And anybody who goes through the documents can and actually goes through the documents, looks at the evidence, and looks at and hears what the witnesses, which you could argue are co-conspirators, you listen to what they say, it doesn't add up, bud. So anyway, without further ado, we have Annie Elise and Nancy Disgrace. And by the way, this is how stupid this is. I went through all the all the extra like, subscribe to this, do that, please do this. It really helps the channel. All that nonsense. It took 5 minutes to get to the actual thing. So, we're just gonna do the Koberger part, and because I don't know enough about the Tempe shooting, Tempe shot, whatever that whole situation is, but nonetheless, yeah. So, without further ado, let's see what Dumb and Dumber have to say.
Past in your career that you are currently ongoing, investigating, and
Oh,
covering. So
Nancy
I want to
Grace.
just jump right
You're
in.
so
And I actually
awesome.
want to start with the news in Idaho and Brian Koberger, because as we all know, Brian Koberger pleaded guilty back in July of 2025 to the brutal slaying of the 4 college students. And we all knew that it was extremely horrifying what he did and the
Well, you didn't do it, but okay.
manner of deaths and everything that happened. However, a newly unsealed document was released that outlines just how barbaric it truly was. It indicates that Brian Koberger stabbed these victims over 150 times. And I have a
You got to add the point where he did it in 90 seconds. Got to add that part.
very specific question I want to ask you, but before I get into that, I just want to outline how they broke it down. It was starting with Kaylee Gonzalez. She was stabbed 38 times, 24 of which were to her face, scalp, and neck.
Gee, that seems a little personal. Almost like a jilted lover. Can't think of any of those.
Maddie Mogan, 28 times, 13 of which were to her face, scalp, and neck. Xana Kernodle, 67 times, 23 of which were to her face, scalp, and neck. And Ethan Chapin, 17 times, 4 of which were to his face, scalp, and neck.
Okay. Is it possible? Well, of course it is, because I'm saying it. That this was torture? This was a torture killing?
Now, we know that Xana fought back. We heard that early on based on her injuries and just how horrible that crime scene looked. And that also explains why her injuries were nearly double, if not triple, the other victims. But my question for you is, why did Brian focus so many of the stabbings on their face, scalp, and neck area?
Well, she can't actually answer that question because Brian Koberger did not commit this crime.
Again, thank you for inviting me. That is a question the prosecution does not have to answer at trial. The question, why? That goes to motive. The state is never required to prove motive because it asks the prosecution.
Because there is no motive. That is why. Because, again, Brian Koberger did not commit these crimes.
To go into the mind of literally an evil killer. A lot of people don't use the word evil or the devil or Satan, but I
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me go back a frame. There they are.
go into the mind of literally
There's the
an
devil.
evil killer. A lot of people don't use the word evil or the devil,
Which is
or
what you're doing
Satan.
right now.
But I think that all of that is personified in Brian Koberger.
It is personified in people who will intentionally lie to their viewers and assist in a media trial in which he was forced into pleading guilty because of morons like you, Nancy, who continue to go on day in and day out, call him a monster, and I think she was doing it before it even came out, before the plea deal came down. She had already convicted him, which is absolutely insane to do by somebody like Nancy Grace, who should obviously know better. And I mean, I haven't been in true crime that long. This is literally my first case. Well, first case that I'm talking about on camera. I followed Kylie Rodney, and that's a whole different thing that I'm probably going to do in the near future. But anyway, this is my second case that I'm actually following. And I even took the approach. All right. One side saying they didn't, the other side saying they didn't. So let's see what comes out in trial, and I'll make my decision then. And then the plea deal comes out. Oh, okay. A little weird, but okay. And then the documents start coming. I'm like, oh, okay, now we're going to get an explanation on how they came to what they came to, and it makes zero sense. It is nonsensical. So, anyway.
Why did he do what he did? We'll never know. But I can tell you this, Annie. I have seen multiple cases where the victim is attacked specifically in the face. Often we see women attacked in the genitals, the breast, the crotch area, the vaginal area, which indicates a sex motivation, even if the victim isn't sex assaulted. In a lot of killings related to hatred of homosexuals, of gay people, you will see their genitals mutilated, which gives you a very strong indicator of motive. They are driven by hatred of either misogyny or hatred because of someone because they're gay. But again, the state doesn't have to prove that. This is what my takeaway is. He was destroying the beauty of these victims. Kelly Gonsalves was stabbed so many times in the face that her teeth were stabbed out of her mouth.
Okay. So, that is one way to interpret it. I interpret it as pure, unadulterated hatred. And you wouldn't get that from a total stranger. You wouldn't get that. You would not get this level of rage and hatred on somebody pulling up to the back of somebody's house saying, screw it, let's go commit some murders. Which is what the prosecution essentially is trying to say. And you have Nancy over here, they were attacking their beauty. No. It was somebody who was full of rage. Full of hatred. Somebody who felt betrayed by Kaylee or Maddie. It wasn't anything like what Nancy's trying to she's trying to connect two parts that just doesn't connect.
Her teeth were around her. And that's what Mr. and Mrs. Gonsalves, Steve and Christy have to think about. I don't know how they think about anything else. And then when you look at Xana's 67 stab wounds, because she dared to fight back. And in the midst of this, Annie, you have the roommate hearing Kohberger say, "I'm here to help you," and then stabbing the victim.
Gee, gosh, that line, it sounds awfully familiar from some popular TV show. Teenage to college girls watch. Something with a vampire in it. Gosh, I don't remember. Oh, man. It was, yeah. Oh, right. She was watching that show. And from somebody who was there, I think they were watching that episode before everything, quote unquote, went down. According to their timeline.
Multiple times in the face, destroying their beauty, wiping out their identity. It's heinous, it's evil, and to me, it goes to motivation, which would be one of the first things I would argue to the jury. If we had had that opportunity and were not given a weak prosecutor that didn't have the spine to take the case to trial.
He couldn't have taken the case to trial because at best they would have came back as a hung jury. Nancy, look at the goddamn documents. What evidence is there putting Koberger at the house? Transferable DNA that is beyond microscopic on the button of a knife sheath. Well, they said it was on the knife sheath, but the only thing the lab got was a swab with his DNA on it, which for all we know, knowing how corrupt MPD and ISP are, they could have put that cotton swab and stuck it up his ass and said, "Here, we got this on the button of the knife sheath. What's it say?" But of course, Nancy Grace, she's too popular to actually do real work.
You bring up an interesting point regarding
And Elise too, and she's not going to fight back on this.
the hatred and that being a potential motivation and destroying their beauty. And early on, a lot of people, I think, assumed that Kaylee was Brian's target and that he went there specifically for her, not only because of the level of injuries, but also because of the blunt force trauma. And
So it sounds like they're going to get into, oh, it was Maddie. Maddie was the target. I don't think so. And let's see if they use the same talking point as Riley did a few days ago.
and the facial injuries that caused her facial disfigurement. But now that we have seen the autopsy results and the way that this attack was so brutal on all of the victims, do you think that with the evidence that's been made public, she was the target? Do you think there was a target, a specific target, or he just wanted to go on a rampage?
I don't know if rampage.
Wait. Did you see that? That was a jump cut. What the hell kind of bullshit's going on here? So a heavily edited, not very well, by the way, cut up interview so Nancy Grace can get the answer right. Let's see if she got the answer right.
And I've used it myself, would be the right description. Because a rampage seems to indicate a blind, wild criminal spree. This was not blind. This was pre-planned.
That's not what that's not what old Billy said.
He had stalked these victims, not necessarily in the traditional sense of the word, but he had driven by their home over and over and over. I believe he stalked them online. I believe that
There's no evidence of that.
he went into their places of work, maybe even onto their campus.
Again, no evidence of that. And for people saying, oh, but the owner, because the owner of the Mad Greek came out and said, yeah, we never seen him here. The owner of the Mad Greek, off a whim, if you just walked up to him and asked, hey, do you remember so-and-so coming in? No. And then you come back with a pit, and you see it on the news and see the person, and then it clicks. Like, oh my God. Yeah, he's been here before. Yet the owner of the Mad Greek said, nope, he ain't never been here. No, not when I was here. I don't know. I haven't seen him. So, again, Nancy Grace is pulling stuff directly out of her ass to try to make the square peg fit in the round hole.
To spy on them. As it turns out, when he first moved to Pullman, he went to a pool party. And at that pool party, he took a lot of pictures of women and spoke to them at the pool party. Some of those, at least one of those women, were
Really? Really? We're redacting Dylan and Bethany. Come on now. Come on. What, we got to go to the Patreon to get the unredacted version? Just like the what was it? It was a very controversial photo that she posted in there. Zavagirl did the same thing on with a different case. But anyway,
online friends with the victims. I don't know if that's how he first became aware of them, but likely. And the
Nope.
stalking began.
nope, he had no idea who the hell they were. Nancy, there is no evidence to suggest that.
So this was not a wild, blind rampage. This was very well thought out.
So well thought out, you left a living witness and had a staring contest with her.
Who was the victim? You can't go by the number of wounds alone because you see Xana was 67 wounds. That doesn't mean she was the original victim. That means most likely that she fought back and sustained more injuries.
Well, they're all the original victims because they're all equally victimized. The original target is what is the correct term because English is very important. Words matter.
Who was the original victim? We don't know, but I also know
There you go.
that Koberger had shown an
It's like she's paying
interest,
attention.
and this is from his digital footprint, in sex assaulting women that were passed out, were comatose, were asleep, or in this case, asleep. And he came onto something very, very different. They were awake, and he had to fight tooth and nail to murder them. I don't know what his original plan was, nor do I care. He murdered, and he had to, were asleep. This is from his digital footprint. In original victim, we don't know, but I also know that Koberger had shown an interest, and this is from his digital footprint, in sex assaulting women that were passed out, were comatose, were asleep, or in this case, asleep. And he came onto something very, very different. They were awake, and he had to.
Well, gee. Okay. So first off, I have no idea if that's true. If it is, yeah, it's weird. It's something to be concerned about, which, again, I don't know if that's true. But the average moron would be able to look. Lights are on. The lights were on. There were lights in the house. There was movement around the house. You just had the dog outside. And you were expecting them to be asleep in seconds, or Nancy, come on now. You are a seasoned veteran at this. Act like it.
Fight tooth and nail to murder them. I don't know what his original plan was, nor do I care. He murdered them. And I don't think one day goes by that some ding-dong online doesn't say, why do you insist Koberger's guilty? He was framed, or he had a co-defendant or an accomplice. He pled guilty.
Okay? And? How many times have we seen innocent people plead guilty to avoid the death penalty? God damn it, Nancy. Get your head out of your ass. I mean, it's not unheard of. It's in his writings. It is in Koberger's writings on this. He talks about it in his thesis on why people will plead guilty to something that they didn't do to avoid the death penalty. Which brings up another question on why he would leave the state of Washington, who does not have the death penalty, to go into Idaho, who does have the death penalty, to commit these murders. Damn it, Nancy. Use your head. Use that 4,000 years of experience that you have. And Annie Elise, not a single, wait a minute. Because Annie Elise is a fangirl with a microphone.
Under oath in a court of law. He did it.
He took responsibility for it. That doesn't mean he did it. And again, he's trying to avoid the death penalty. Which, again, begs the question, why leave a state that doesn't have the death penalty to go and commit a murder in a state that has one? Make that make sense, Nancy.
That infuriates me as well. I think that group has now dubbed themselves the Pro Burgers, and they advocate for his innocence. That
Don't care.
else involved.
Don't care what they call themselves.
No, you've dubbed them that, Annie. And fangirl. No, we question the process. There was evidence that was not looked into. It was not ran. You have questionable. They didn't run things through CODIS because it was outside of the crime scene. When it was in the crime scene, the whole house is a crime scene. For God's sake. Of course, Annie Elise didn't look that up because, again, she's a fangirl who reads off a teleprompter, can't think a lick for herself, and just goes off what mainstream media says and her God Almighty Nancy Grace says.
I'm with you.
Sing it to
Now,
somebody that
speaking of-
cares.
Hey, Nancy, got your nose mighty high up there, even though you look dumber and dumber day in and day out. The more you just sit there and act like an NPC, never, ever asking a question, a legitimate question. Why wasn't their DNA processed? Why wasn't the other DNA on the knife sheath? Yeah. Yeah. You Nancy Grace guys, you Nancy Grace people didn't know that one, did you? There was another set of DNA found, and it was blood. Blood. Not touch DNA. Blood on the knife sheath. Did they test it? Oh, freaking course not. Why would they? They already got their person. They already got their narrative. Hell, why get it right when you can just get it done, huh? That's the Moscow way. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And again, you have Annie Elise fangirling. Oh my God, you're so right. Jesus. Criminy. Oh. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. All for you guys.
Now, speaking of him not perhaps expecting what he saw when he went into the home and expecting people to be awake and being caught off guard, a forensic scientist.
Wait, I thought they were asleep in their beds. I thought 3 of them were asleep. Are we changing our tune on that one? Because we were told by Moscow PD, the finest police force on the planet, that they were all tucked in their beds without a creature stirring, not even a mouse. Oh, but now they're awake. Okay.
Scientist from Brian's defense team has said that Kaylee and Maddie were posed in bed together after being killed. Specifically, that Kaylee was moved from her head being on the pillow to on top of Maddie, and then the comforter was pulled over them. I thought it was really interesting that he used the word posed, because I think that it could perhaps be that, or that Brian was trying to conceal the crime that he had committed so that when people walked into the room, perhaps it would be a little bit,
Okay, any cut rate profiler will tell you that was, oh my God, what did I just do? That is instant regret. which typically comes with somebody who used to love that person. Which again points back to Jack D. So, and then on the way out, maybe he saw Xana, or there were other people talking, or there were other people there to quell Xana and Ethan, or they were already dead from the 230 door camp from that we know at from the 1112 ring cam at 227. There are many different possibilities here. But again, you have these two true crime creators. One of them was on national TV for a very long time. And they're not asking a single question. They're just being good old mindless lemmings.
Delayed in seeing what had really transpired. But what is your opinion in hearing that?
Posed is a term of art in the criminal world. It staged is a term of art in the criminal world, which means that the scene was tampered with. That's really all that means. But I agree with your analysis that they were posed. Why put one female victim on top of the other? That's posing. That's in the traditional sense. Anytime you tamper with a scene, whether you turn off the lights, whether you put a blanket over the victim's face, which I've seen in many, many murder cases. I had one case that I looked at where a mom was murdered in her home. She was found on her bed completely naked, but the killer had taken a wicker bathroom basket trash can and put it over her head. What a demeaning way.
Okay. Not even remotely the same. Not even remotely the same, Nancy. But nice attempt, I guess.
For your body to be found by homicide detectives. I've seen many cases where a sweater or a blanket was put over the victim's face or over their body. I worked on a case where a victim was covered.
And Nancy, who were the perpetrators in those cases? Loved ones. Mothers killing their kids, fathers killing their wives. Kids killing their parents in what is usually a fit of rage. And then after that adrenaline comes back down and they realize what they have done, the regret kicks in. And because they don't want to get caught, they cover they cover the victim's face to pseudo hide what they've done.
Covered in leaves. In the Delphi double murders of Abby and Libby, for instance, the girls were covered with limbs, tree limbs and twigs and brush.
Which isn't even remotely the same. Being covered with leaves and brush is a legit attempt to hide them. Covering them with a blanket in a bed is completely different. And here you have lazy-ass Nancy Grace trying to conflate all of this together.
You ever seen a dog circle 3 or 4 times before it sits down? Have you ever seen that, Annie?
Yes.
Anybody with a dog has.
Why? Why? I don't know why. But I know dogs have been doing it since thousands of years before we came to the world. It's instinctive. Did Koberger intend to cover up their faces? Don't know, don't care. But he did. I think it's something instinctive that, there's a lot of theories. The killer doesn't want the victims.
A moron. She is a moron. This case has single-handedly exposed Nancy Grace for the moron that she is. Any average moron will tell you. Any average person will tell you that that a murderer will cover somebody up when they are in a bed the blanket, that usually is a sign of regret. But according to Nancy Grace, it's the same thing as covering with the truth.
Looking at them. They don't want to see their faces after, in this case, disfiguring them. They are repulsed by the victims. They are repulsed by the victims as they look in death. It could be any number of things. But what does it mean to me? All I care is about its probative value. What can I prove? I learned in court. There's if you could see the stacks of paper on my desk right now, and have been working on the Tepe story. Just stacks and stacks of facts that I've amassed. All of them are not probative. They can't prove something. In court, for me, if I can't use it to prove something, it doesn't exist. I need every scrap, every scintilla, every shred of evidence to prove something.
All right, what is the evidence that proves Brian Kohlberger did it? Show me. Instead, in this case, for whatever reason, you prance around and you play the feelings game, trying to win the court of public opinion over the actual facts of the case.
This proves something. This proves to me that the murder was not random. This wasn't somebody that just broke in to burglarize or rape and went, and then killed the victims.
You might want to tell Bill Thompson that one, because that would be news to him.
And ran. No. This killer took time to stage the scene. Whether it was just turning off the lights or moving the body or putting a blanket over the face.
Which would mean it wasn't a stranger that did this. It was somebody that the victims knew. God damn, Nancy. It's not that hard of a bridge to cross. And then you have Elise being the old bobblehead. Yeah. You're so right. You're so right. Yes, you're right. Oh, great one. Oh, you're so right.
It doesn't matter. That's staging. That means typically not random. If it was a random burglar that lost it and killed the victims, they would run. They wouldn't take time to stage the scene. Not random, which is...
And mind you, this was allegedly done in like 4 minutes. Even less. As quickly as 90 seconds.
Probative. It proves to me it was someone that picked out these victims to kill.
Almost like they knew him.
That's an interesting point you make, because based on your experience as a prosecutor and your knowledge of the case, what do you believe Brian Kohlberger's MO is? There's been the term incel thrown around as well, as far as who he was and what could have potentially motivated
Jesus
him.
Christ,
What do you think?
Annie,
Do you think he
catch
just
up. That's already been disproven.
he had a thirst to kill and he had been planning this? He wanted to be smarter and prove he was smarter?
No.
What do you think it is?
I've thought about this a lot.
I bet you have.
Which, of course, none of this is probative, but I have thought about it a lot because
I don't think she has the ability to
I think
think.
I was about 5 years into felony prosecutions, nothing but felonies. And at that point, I developed an expertise. I was dealing with nothing but hardcore, typically murder, serial murder, mass murder, serial rape, serial child molestation, and any type of arson, which is extremely difficult to prove. And I was sitting in court looking over at the defendant. The jury wasn't there, of course, because I wouldn't look at the defendant in front of the jury. And I was thinking, why did he leave this wake of pain behind him? You know, like a speedboat leaving a wake.
I
that would
forgot what
touch
the original
so
question was. Holy sh! God dang.
many lives. And I can speak to the truth of that. My fiance was murdered shortly before our wedding. I dropped out of school. My dream of becoming a Shakespearean literature professor was over. My dream of being a wife and a mother and having a family was over. destroyed. And because of that, over 20 years passed before I could bring myself to have that dream again. And I was an older pregnant mom, highly, highly risky. And my daughter, Lucy, and I almost died because I gave birth so late in life. My little girl. It affected my life, my decisions, my career, as it is, the way I raise my children, the way I see the world, everything. So I was sitting in court looking and thinking, why would you leave that wake of pain and ruin so many lives? And then it hit me like a thunderbolt. Why ask why? You're wasting your time. That said, I will entertain.
To establish a timeline, 1. To establish a motive, 2. And to learn about the psychology so we can have more red flags in the future so it doesn't happen again. That is why. I don't understand why she went on a 30-minute tangent on her life story. It's all sad and a nice little redemption, but I don't even remember what what Annie's question was. It went that long.
Your question as to motive.
Oh, it was
Think
motive.
about Koberger. Who was he before the murders? His sister had described him as a fat slob. We don't use the F word in our home. Fat.
Oh. Okay. And again, that was not true because Brian Koberger was in pretty decent shape. He wasn't a quote-unquote fat slob. He worked out. And on top of that, and yeah, he was a quote-unquote fat slob when in his younger years. And since I don't know if Nancy Grace is going to get into Brian's story, but yeah, when he was younger, Brian was a little chunky. He was a little chunky. And he eventually fell into doing drugs, hard drugs, getting the addiction, getting incredibly skinny. And then he goes and turns his life around. He gets clean. He goes to college for criminology. He excels in that. He goes off across the country to get his master's, only to go and kill 4 people before he even finishes his master's. Make that make sense, Nancy. Everything matters here. Everything. Whether it's probative or not. Because we have to know what happened. And the story, the bullshit we are being told, did not happen.
Her words, not mine. A heroin addict, couldn't get a job, tried repeatedly to get on with police departments, so like what, Barney Fife? Couldn't get on. He had to prove himself. He had to be the star of something.
Which he was. He was excelling in his class. He was a student aide. He was in his master. He was in masters, in the master's program. He was excelling. He was a star in his class. Now he wasn't well liked socially because he was socially awkward. But again, he was one of the best in his class. So again, that doesn't point to why he would go and murder 4 people, because doing it for the lulz, I guess.
So he began his studies in criminal procedure and criminology. He studied to the point where he was hired as a teaching assistant, gets into a graduate degree program at WSU, Washington State University in Pullman, and he conducted all of these interviews with hardened criminals about their motivation and how they got caught and how they targeted their victim and what went through their mind at the time of the murder. And he'd pick felons that had committed violent crimes.
Gee, it's almost like he went to college for criminology. Huh. Who would have thunk it?
Like rape, like homicide, almost as if he was trying to live vicariously through them. And I believe,
Or again, he was taking a criminology course at Washington State University. Which one do you think's more likely, Nancy?
that the 4 victims were guinea pigs. He wanted to prove he could do it and not get caught. He wanted to feel what they felt, the other criminals. And he wanted to be master of his craft.
Really? Seriously? Seriously? Come on now, Nancy. We're really running through this again. Again, we already went through his story. A story of dang near rags to riches as far as personal health and growth. And he's going to risk it all just to see if he can do it. You want to try again, Nancy? Of course not, because you don't think. You have lost the ability to think, Nancy. And you got Elise. Mm-hmm. Yup, you're right, Nancy. You're always right.
That's why I think he did it. That's why I think he picked these victims and a deep, deep misogyny, hatred of women.
Which has already been proven false. Thank you for keeping up with the case that you are an expert at. Yeah. The greatest the greatest true crime minds on the interwebs. Nancy Grace is spewing bullshit lies.
Yeah, maybe because he couldn't get a woman. I don't know why.
He literally had like a girlfriend situationship thing going when these took place. Would you like to try again, Nancy? Or do you want to continue talking out of your own ass? Or does Annie want to chime in and actually get the record straight? Let's see what happens, boys and girls.
Why? He hated women, but he obviously did. So you mix.
Obviously, the dude loved his mother. What are you talking about? And you got Annie Elise. Oh, yes. Yes, you're so right. You're so right, Nancy. Yes. Yes. You're totally right. For God's sake! Follow the case. Follow the evidence. That is your freaking job.
Mix all that together and you get a devil's brew personified by Brian Koberger. May he rot in hell.
No, Nancy, you rot in hell. Going off on what is at this point clearly a patsy. Because you refuse to actually put the work in anymore. You're resting on your name. And you have millions of subscribers who just sit there, clap like a little seal because you're Nancy Grace. And God forbid Annie Elise actually put some freaking effort into anything she does anymore to actually get the facts right. You have Annie Elise just sitting there nodding along at things that are clearly, truly, and obviously false.
Amen. And
Amen. Amen, says Annie Elise, the cut rate Dollar General Nancy Grace. Amen. To stuff that is clearly lies.
He obviously was not smart enough to get away with it, and the evidence that even has been made public to this day has been overwhelming, which leads me to my
Huh? What? Huh? Overwhelming? Are we getting the same police documents, Annie? What do you mean overwhelming? Touch DNA and cell phone data that puts them in the area, which that cell phone data, the cell phone tower just so happens to overlap with the same highway that everybody comes in from Pullman to buy groceries, which is what people do from Pullman go to Moscow to buy groceries because the price of living in Moscow is so much cheaper than it is in Pullman. Yeah. You know what that's called, Annie? Research. How about you do it? Instead of sitting here spouting off absolute nonsense for 15 minutes. We're like, again, we started at 5 minutes in. We're only 23 minutes in. And they have yet to say anything remotely true when it comes to the case, Brian Koberger, and the actual facts.
my last question regarding Koberger, and then I want to jump into the Tepe case, which you had mentioned earlier.
Oh, an ad break.
I'll just lay trust dependently.
Yeah,
They
we're not.
own artificial creatine. Just use promo prosecuting attorney. If you had been the prosecuting attorney on this case, what would you have done differently?
Not a goddamn thing.
Number one, I would have had the balls to take it to trial. Let's just start with that.
And you would have gotten your ass handed to you, Nancy. There's nothing there other than touch DNA. Absolutely nothing. You notice everything that the people who think Brian Koberger is guilty, they have to make up their own lies to make it make sense. Where people on my side of this debate were like, well, explain that. Explain this. Explain this. Why is that? Where is that? And then you have people who Nancy has clumped together, and maybe Koberger is guilty, but his rights were absolutely violated. That is that's Lana's. At last I saw that was Lana's stance on this case. From Truth and Transparency, phenomenal creator. And then you have people like myself, Birdie, Pavarotti, Dago from True Crime Cafe, where we're like, everything we see here exonerates him. You notice how they don't go over any of the untested DNA found all around the house. They don't talk about the diluted blood found all around the house. They have to intentionally leave stuff out in an attempt to make things make sense. And yet, their story still does not make sense. But anyway.
Trial is never easy. It's arduous. It's painful. And this would have been a long trial, too. But that's why you're elected to the district attorney's position. That's why you get paid. You don't get paid to hide in your office and take cheap pleas. That is not what is expected of you.
The thing is, Bill Thompson was not going to get a conviction out of this case, Nancy. Actually follow the damn case, read the damn documents instead of spouting off on your freaking TV show acting like you know something.
So, effing do it.
Oh, I couldn't have said it any better myself, Nancy. Go read the documents. Tell me. Tell me, where? What ties Kohlberger to the victims? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She's using talking points from 2022 or from 2023. This was posted 2 days ago from Wednesday night. And she's still using talking points from years ago. She's no expert. She's a freaking moron. She has no idea what she's talking about. She has not kept up with the case. Her only goal in this case is to get a guilty conviction. Her whole goal pre-settlement, plea deal, was to get a conviction of Brian Kohlberger, whether he did it or not. Because that was the marching orders that was given. And Elise, she's just a moron. There ain't no way around that one. She's just an idiot. Plain and simple.
Get in there and try the case.
Mm-hmm.
Overwhelming evidence of guilt. There's
Where?
never a slam dunk. Do I have to say O.J. Simpson? But there was
Where's the slam dunk? Where's the smoking gun?
so much evidence in this case. I mean, if you're going to have the death penalty, and I'm not preaching pro or anti-death penalty right now, but if you're in a jurisdiction with the death penalty and you are the elected DA, you're just a house pet sitting in your office, you're afraid to get out there and try the case, get in the ring, get dirty, sweat, bleed, but
Because at best case scenario, this is a hung jury. Even with the judge on your side, at best, this is a hung jury.
try the case. I mean, I don't know. If they re-elect him, it's on them.
Yeah, I know so many people were angered with that and still are angry with that. So thank you for sharing your opinion on that. I want to move.
Now, this case should have actually absolutely went to trial. Ann Taylor should have never taken that deal. She proposed the deal apparently. However it was done. Because again, with everything that's come out thus far, nothing points to Kohlberger. And there is, at the minimum, clear and obvious reasonable doubt. You have Nancy Grace over here. Oh, it's a slam dunk. Yeah, she never gives details as to why. Ever. And you have Elise, the bobblehead. Yeah, well, yep, you're right. You're right. It's a slam dunk. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And you notice how they never, ever brought up any of the Dylan Mortensen or Bethany Funke or anything remotely controversial on that part. They just did not. They didn't bring any of that extenuating circumstances up. All they did was talk Kohlberger. And it's like, it's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. All right. That is all that I have for you today. I know this is a little bit longer than normal, but, you know, when you have something like this, you got to have it to call it out. So, and got to call out every last one of them because there is so much more on the line here than meets the eye. Because you sitting at home could be the next Brian Kohlberger. A patsy for Greek Row. A murder on Greek Row of fraternities and fraternities killing their own. And yeah, I'm feeling comfortable enough now. I am very confident that it was somebody from Greek Row or many members of Greek Row. And again, you have you have to put into consideration, what was Ethan doing while Xana was attacked? No man is going to sit there and watch his girlfriend die and just sit there. What was holding Ethan back? Because there is no way, with all the stories that they've told, and oh my God, it's snowing. There's no way that the stories that was told by Bethany, by Dylan, by police, that Xana was killed after Ethan. Nothing they have said points to that. So that's an explanation that is going to be needed. All right. Now I'm done. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. So you don't miss anything. And we'll see you all in the next one.